Hi, I'm Chris Voigt. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington State Potato Commission, and I am probably the biggest potato lover there is out there. And to prove my point, how much I love potatoes, I ate nothing but potatoes for 60 days. I mean, literally nothing but potatoes. No toppings on them, no salsa, no other vegetables, no sour cream, no butter, nothing like that, just strictly potatoes. And what I was trying to do, the essence of this experiment was really to prove to the USDA or the federal government that there's an amazing amount of nutrition in a potato, because for a while there, and still even today, they're trying to restrict or exclude the potato from a lot of its nutrition programs, and it just doesn't make sense whatsoever. If you look at the reports, they'll talk about how the population is deficient in potassium, how we're deficient in vitamin C, how we're deficient in fiber. And if you look at a potato nutrition label, those are the exact strengths of the potato. And particularly the high sodium diets that most Americans have today, potassium is so critical in kind of neutralizing that and creating good heart health. And so potatoes are amazingly nutritious for you. And I think that, when I was eating just potatoes, I kind of proved that. And we documented it. We looked at, we did a kind of a pre-physical before I started eating potatoes. We did one kind of at the halfway point, and then the one at the end. And quite frankly, I knew there was a lot of nutrition in potato, but I had no idea what my health would be like at the end of 60 days. And quite frankly, I was hoping just to be alive. That was good enough for me. But it was a life changer when I saw the results. When I saw that I actually lost weight eating 20 potatoes a day, 2,200 calories of potatoes a day. I lost 21 pounds. My cholesterol dropped 67 points. It's hard to get that big of a cholesterol drop using drugs, and here I was doing it with something healthy from the earth, the potato. My blood sugar came down, my triglycerides came down. Every blood chemistry vital either stayed the same or got better eating just potatoes. And while my intent was to do this diet just to really kind of protest what the government was doing, it was life-changing for me. I mean, it made me much more aware of what I was eating and how that diet plays such an important role in just your overall health and your ability to have energy throughout the day, your ability to sleep well at night, your ability to think clearly. And that potato diet was good for me, and I would never encourage anybody to just eat potatoes, do what I did, but I think what I did, hopefully it'll show you that there is a lot of nutrition in potatoes, and you can make it a big part of your diet. Really, two things happened why sort of the reputation of the potato fell apart. One is these high protein, low carb diets. I mean, they just went gangbusters, and quite frankly, the potato industry got hit hard. Fresh potato sales dropped like a rock when these high protein, low carb diets came out. And it really affected sales. It really affected the amount of acres that were planted. But then something happened. I think people realized that that's just not healthy living. It's not healthy eating bacon at every meal or steak at every meal. And people slowly came back to potatoes. So we're actually starting to see kind of a rebound in fresh potato sales. But quite frankly, one of the things that we struggle with in the potato industry and sort of the image that we have is that people associate fast food with the potato or French fries. And while, French fries are actually just fresh potatoes that have been cooked in usually a healthy oil, like a canola oil, no trans fats or anything like that. But we as Americans just have access to them at every meal, it seems like, and that's the problem. It's not necessarily the French fry that's the problem, it's the diet. We're just eating too many other fats with those French fries, and that's what we have to be concerned about. So don't demonize the potato because of the French fry. You got to really look at your entire well-being, your entire diet, what you're eating, and make sure that you are limiting that fat intake. The nutritional facts about the potato that really surprised a lot of people, potassium, for example. And we know potassium is really critical in combating the high sodium diets that we have. It's good for blood pressure. But when people think of what food product has potassium, everybody naturally gravitates towards banana. Most people don't know that actually there's 40% more potassium in a potato. And we're not talking a huge potato, we're talking about a 5.3 ounce potato, which is about that size. That potato right there has 40% more potassium than a banana. And then vitamin C. I think it's easy for all of us, when we think vitamin C, we think of citrus. Well, potatoes actually played a role with some of the early explorers in the 15 and 1600s. It was easier for them to carry potatoes and get their vitamin C and prevent scurvy with potatoes. And so actually a potato can provide almost half of your daily requirement for vitamin C. And a lot of people don't think about that because it's not orange or it's not yellow or it grows underneath the ground. But actually there's a fair amount of vitamin C in a potato. And what's amazing, if you look at the prices, you compare the price of some other vitamin C things like citrus and compare it to the price of potatoes, there's a lot of instances where you can actually eat more economically and get your vitamin C more economically with potatoes than you could with other citrus products. Citrus is great. I love oranges, I love lemons, I love limes, but I also love potatoes, and I think a lot of people don't realize there's vitamin C in a potato. And then fiber. You can't forget fiber. Fiber is so critical to so many of our body functions. It really helps kind of scour our bodies and cleanse, helps us with managing cholesterol, and just eat the skin of a potato. That's where there's a tremendous amount of fiber, very comparable to oatmeal, for example. We think of oatmeal as sort of the premier fiber food, but really if you look at the nutrition label, you're going to see just as much fiber in a potato, as long as you're eating the skin, as there is in oatmeal. China has some serious issues that they're dealing with. A growing population, they're losing land base, they're headed towards an ecological disaster. They've got to figure out how to effectively feed their people for the next 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years down the road. Guess what they're relying on? They're relying on the potato. They're making huge, huge investments because they realize that they can grow more food per acre, get more nutrition per acre using potato than all the other traditional crops. So they're investing heavily in potato production because they know that potatoes are important. We know it too, but I think we've forgotten. Let's go back in history. Let's look at the South Americans. Let's look at the Irish and how they literally lived off of potatoes. In Eastern Europe, it's still a big part of so many people's lives. And it's really sustaining us. It's giving cheap nutrition that's sustainable. You can grow more potatoes on an acre of ground using fewer inputs than you can so many other crops. So as we look at a growing population and the demand that's going to put on our earth of depleting resources, you can't plan for the future without planning for potatoes, because it's going to be critical in feeding our growing population. We're starting to see a lot of new varieties being introduced. It used to be typically just kind of the brown russet potato. There's whites out there, there's reds, there's yellow flesh potatoes, there's red flesh potatoes, there's red skinned yellow flesh potatoes. You're starting to see fingerlings and purple potatoes. You can see orange potatoes. You're starting to see more and more variety of different types of potatoes. They're all good, and they all have just wonderful nutritional profiles. But probably the thing that most consumers don't realize is really when there is more color in the potato, it does offer more antioxidant content, for example. Just because a potato is white, though, white flesh, doesn't mean it's not packing nutrition, because it does. And it's sustained generations of people for years and years. There's a lot of nutrition in potatoes, but it's kind of fun to actually have some new varieties, and it kind of makes the potato sexy again. Now there's some real fun ways to come back to potatoes for. There's a reason to come back for potatoes now. You got new stuff out there, and it's fun and exciting to see these new shapes and new sizes and new flavors and new colors, and it looks beautiful on a plate. And the good thing about it is it's all got nutrition. Child nutrition is so hard. I tell you what, I feel so much for the school nutritionalists and the folks working in the cafeterias, because I've got little kids too, and I know how finicky they can be, and sometimes they just don't want to eat that broccoli today or don't have a taste for it. But so it's important that we're feeding our kids something that they'll eat, and whatever we give them, we got to know that it's nutritious. Everybody loves potatoes. They're so versatile. They can be prepared so many different ways. You can put all sorts of different toppings on them. And so it's easy to find something that a kid will like when it's made with a potato. Whereas lots of times school districts really struggle with that. And they'll think they're doing the right thing by offering this wide variety and diversity of different vegetables, but they really end up in the garbage. It's costing school districts money, but really it's costing our kids their nutrition. And so I think the thing to remember is that it's not nutritious for a kid if it never makes their mouth. And that's what we've got to focus on. And potato has been a wonderful tool in helping deliver true nutrition to kids that really need it.